Okay, hi, I'm Sith King.
And I'm Sonic Sons.
We're the Rambling Reviewers.
And we're doing things that are more sane than our previous review.
Yeah, last time is the first time I think we've ever rage quit in a review. We didn't even do that for, like, Equestria Girls. We didn't do that for anything else.
No, not that I recall.
Yeah. But we're...
Then we went on to watch some Batman Beyond, so...
Yeah, so that
had some sanity back.
So, we're going to be looking at a series called...
Haibane Renmei. Which has nothing to do with Batman Beyond.
Which is a story about how angels come to Earth, and then Shinji Ikari gets shoved in the giant robot to fight them.
Nope. Very, very different angels.
Okay, then it's about a bunch... No, I can't even think about anything else. So,
okay.
Go on. Sorry. So, I honestly, I'm going to let him take the front seat. I take the front seat a lot, but, you know.
Alright, well, Haibane Renmei is one of my all-time favorite shows. It's very deep, it's personal, it's meaningful. Some people would criticize it as being slow, and in a way it is, but, like, it's supposed to be. This is definitely not a save the world type of show. This is personal development and spiritual quest, essentially. And it starts off so beautifully. It in general just has a lot of this sort of weightless elegance about it.
So when I saw it, I was bored to tears.
So when you saw your bored to tears, yeah. So I originally saw this whole thing on my own. Actually, I originally got introduced to it by my anime club way back in high school, and I watched like the first 4 episodes or something. And I was like, I have to go see the rest of this. This is amazing. It starts with our main character, Raka, just falling from the sky for no apparent reason. And
wait, I think I've heard of Raka before. I think the Scorpions did something about her.
No.
Here I am, dun dun dun. Raka you like a hurricane.
No.
Yes.
Okay. You see why this wasn't his type of show. Because this is much more quiet and meditative and sort of thing. And slice of life-ish.
I'm a practical guy. I believe in what I can see, feel, and touch. Meditation is for people who have patience.
Yeah, so falling from the sky for no apparent reason, and there's a bird, a crow, or raven perhaps, that tries to assist her apparently, and she's just gently shakes her head and says, no, sorry, you can't, but thanks anyway. And then...
But Raka, I have a parachute with me! You can save yourself!
So, then we get some context on this. This whole thing is actually a dream. It's being experienced by this girl who's actually in a cocoon. And we're shown from the title sequence that these things grow from, like, seeds that fall from the sky, apparently. And it grows to the size big enough to hold a whole person inside it. And no one knows why this happens exactly. In this strange town that you live in, we're basically introduced this as Raka is introduced. She hatches out of her cocoon, and there's a bunch of people there who all have wings like angels, but like really kind of small wings, and they've got little halos floating above their heads. And Raka is informed that she is a Haibane, like they are, and she has no idea what that is, and she has no idea who she is, and realizes she can't remember her own name or anything else about her. And it's explained to her that she's in a new world now, and they even say that people of the old world maybe don't remember her either, though I guess no one can directly confirm that. And then she starts growing wings through her back. And I guess this is an interesting contrast, actually, to what we were just reviewing, because that stuff just seemed like insanity in an offensive way. And this is actually a lot of very interesting mystery. There's a whole world here, and you are learning about it through the eyes of someone who is just born yesterday, or just born today, essentially, even though she's born as of like a full-grown person.
What would happen if someone's seed landed somewhere really inconvenient? Like, do they take the seeds and grow them somewhere else into cocoons?
As far as I know, the seeds
Or
only ever land in the home of the Haibane, which is called Old Home.
Oh.
So they're presumably,
so that
guided somehow.
So the rest of the people don't have to worry about, like, the only outhouse getting blocked off by someone's cocoon.
Yeah, no.
And those people getting mocked. You grew up in shit.
Yeah, no, definitely not. So her wings start growing on her back. She has to go through all the pain of this. And when they come out, there's a moment where they look like they're overly large compared to everyone else's. And you think, like, oh, she's special or something. And then, no, they shrink back to their regular size. That's, like, the normal part of the growth process. And Renrock has, like, a fever, and Reki is caring for her. Reki becomes kind of a self-appointed mentor, guardian-type person. Actually gave her name, her new name, because Raka is from the word for falling, which is a slight translation glitch, because to the English speakers, it's like they're taking words out of some other language, but to Japanese speakers, people are really named, like falling and sleep and air and things like that.
I don't think I would like it if I looked like an angel and my name was Falling.
Yeah.
Because that has all sorts of nasty implications. Like, say, me being cast out of heaven and being forced to rule in hell.
Yeah, well, do remember that Christianity is not a popular religion in Japan, and they just borrow things liberally. Actually, there's no iconography, like a cross or whatever, that shows up in this show. They just take the angel wings and halos, and that's it. And they're clearly not operating as regular angels either. There isn't a god hanging around telling them what to do or any of that.
Right, there's just everyone else with extremely draconian punishments if you step out of line.
I'd like to know where you get extremely draconian from. You saw, like, 2 episodes, and nobody got, like, whipped or anything, nor do they later in the series. So this is one of my main problems between Sith King and I about this, and that is, so the Haibane obviously being, or sorry, I should clarify, not everyone in town is a Haibane. There's most people are just naturally born humans, and they come about in the normal way, and they don't have wings or halos. And the Haibane are born differently, obviously, and treated as a different group. And they have certain rules that are set up by the Haibane Renmei, which actually means the Charcoal Feather Federation. And some of those rules include they don't get paid in the usual currency. They get paid in this different script that's kept in a notebook. They aren't allowed to wear new clothing. It has to be like hand-me-downs. And they become very good at sewing, they say, so that they have comfortable enough clothes. And there's a restriction on where they're allowed to take up residence. There's actually 2 places where Haibane can live, and the one that we see in this series mostly is Old Home. And Sith King looks at all that and sees the mistreatment of a minority group. Like, if you told any group, especially one that's just born that way, you are not allowed to wear new clothes. You have to wear hand-me-downs.
You're not allowed to have money. You're not allowed to own new things. You have to live in this very limited area. And your whole life you have to serve the community with all of your heart because that's your job and moral duty to do that. We don't allow you to go past certain areas. And trust us, it's all for your own good that you have to live in squalor.
Yeah, so...
Okay, I'm exaggerating.
You're exaggerating the squalor because...
bit, but tell me another... That's how the Goa'uld treat their peasants. They say, we are gods, therefore we live above you. You can't have new things, you can't have the best stuff. I've had 2.5 decades of this exact... seeing people treated like this, and it's always treated as a bad thing. Peasants in Stargate, Faunus in Ruby, the Bajorans in Star Trek, Wookiees in Knights of the Old Republic, Just again and again, you see people oppressed and treated badly and told, no, this is the best you can do. You are not morally worthy of being treated like a regular person. So I see this, and I think, oh no, they're being mistreated.
Well, I know that the show accidentally wanders into negative implications that way. It is not intended that way, and you're exaggerating the amount of the way of all that stuff, essentially. Because they, we see Haibane content living in an old home. It's a nice enough place. Their bosses at their various jobs, first off, they get to choose their own jobs. They're not like forced into slave labor. And their bosses tend to treat them with respect. They're not treated as someone to be feared, like, oh no, like the way people would treat mutants in the X-Men. Oh no, how dare you, those people are creepy, they do evil things. They're treated as different, roughly in the way that monks are treated as different in the Buddhist tradition. You live over there, you have different things, you do different rules, but that's perfectly respectful. Now, I will grant you, because they are born into that and did not choose specifically to live a different life, that leads to accidental negative implications. But I believe what they were trying to do, because again, Buddhism being more dominant in Japan and Shintoism even more so, or more anciently, they're trying to evoke that sort of idea, in that the whole purpose of this mystical cycle or whatever that's going on is for these people, these Haibane, to attain a sort of spiritual enlightenment. And so the rules about not owning too many possessions are based in the Buddhist tradition of, if you don't get too attached to physical things, you cannot have as much spiritual insight as you might. Now, we can discuss how this might be reworked. You could have a world, for instance, in which, okay, you're born maybe with the wings, you're allowed to do whatever, but if you want to achieve enlightenment, here's our recommended path for doing that, no pressure, and you can even have characters who decide not to do that, but other people, they felt like, oh, this is spiritually important, and so forth.
Just the appearance of choice, because...
Yeah. I'll grant you. It wanders into some negative territory on accident.
And when you don't when you're like me, I tend to pick apart everything excessively. Mm-hmm. See previous 100+ episodes.
Yes.
It's not that necessarily that I think that... It's not that I think it's bad necessarily. It's just that, like I said, I'm working off of 2.5 decades of reading stories, watching stories, playing through stories. And when you hear a motif repeated over and over again, you start to see certain patterns. And when those patterns are present, you think instinctively, this needs to be fought.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll grant, when I first saw the show, I was not as suspicious as you, but somewhat suspicious of the Haibane Renmei, of the people in charge, of the communicator is the name of the leader guy, whose face is always hidden behind a mask and doesn't appear to have been elected or anything, as far as we know. So it's sort of like, oh, well, who's this guy? Why is he in charge? As I continued watching the series, though, I was like, oh, okay, everything works out. Like, questioning the system here is kind of like watching The Lion King and questioning monarchy. Like, okay, yes, actually in the real world, monarchy is a bad idea. But in this world, the story has set itself up that Mufasa is totally wise and great, and Simba will totally be wise and great after him, and it's only because somebody cheated the system that it was ever bad in the middle with Scar. But, like, as decreed by fate or something, it's just the hand of the author, really. This is going to work out, stop thinking about democracy, move on with the rest of the story. Which, incidentally, I was so glad at the end of The Legend of Korra, where what's-his-name, the Earth King, was like, you know what, we're going to have democracy. And it was like, oh, they actually thought of that. That's nice. Yeah, they brought that up. Mm-hmm. But, for the purposes of this story, that's not the angle they're attempting to explore.
But I didn't get that.
Yeah.
See previously.
No, I understand.
And we'll discuss like how our personal tastes in fiction shaped our individual views later. But I think I've interjected enough.
All right.
So,
Well, so I'm going to go ahead and give my recommendation. And that is, I recommend you watch this show. It's only 13 episodes long. It's beautiful, and I'm about to spoil everything. So
basically our usual style.
So basically our usual style, but with an extra warning therein, because I just love this show. And, so what we learn is that all the Haibane are meant to undergo something called the Day of Flight. And this is a process of like magically disappearing one day. And people get to that point when they've achieved a sort of spiritual maturity in a way. They have a sense of contentment, a sense of self-love, a sense of kind of figured out who they are.
Or they get jetpacks. Because awesome!
Which, by the way, the whole town is surrounded by this huge wall and nobody knows it's on the outside. And sometimes some people come in to trade goods, but these people have like masks on and they don't talk to anybody and they don't talk to the communicator and with these hand signals. Anyway.
And then one day we received a grim reminder
that
guy lived inside of a bird cage.
No, I don't want that.
The prey, no, we are the hunters.
Oh my gosh. See? Again.
This is why I'm not in charge of anything spiritual ever.
This is why this is not your show, yeah. Anyway, so the Day of Flight thing, where you disappear, comes about having reached a sort of spiritual awakening, as it were. And the first person we see it happen to is Ku, who is a particularly young Haibane, at least among... There's two groups, actually. The little kids that are all, like, 6 or 7.
Wait, Ku? Isn't Ku, like, the Spanish word for Q?
I mean, maybe. It's the Japanese word for air, so...
Oh my god! I understand what these things are now!
Mm-hmm.
They're children of the Q Collective.
No.
Eventually, once they gain enough maturity, they're allowed to ascend to full Q status.
That'd be cool, but not really.
Q is a version of John Delancey before he met Picard.
That is not how this works, but good effort.
Let me have my fanfics, damn you. Okay, I'm going to try I'm going to fail, but I'm going to try to not mock this as much.
So, Ku takes her Day of Flight to everyone's surprise, especially because she's younger among the older set, and it seems to be comparatively like immature, not in an annoying way, but just hasn't taken on a lot of responsibility necessarily. But takes Day of Flight. And it turns out like she had found contentment, and that was all she needed. Reki shows some quiet signs of bitterness over this, wondering how Ku got the Day of Flight before her. As we get further into it, we find essentially it's all about exploring people's emotions and histories and so forth, which is interesting for a group of people who have no history beyond this one town. I love this idea of, if you're making a show in which one of the main concepts is about finding yourself and figuring out who you are and how to be content with who you are, you give a setting in which the characters really have no idea who they are. They have no memories. And then,
so wait, what you're saying is that the big question of the show is, who are you?
Is that the Babylon 5 reference? Because...
damn it. I was going to set that... I was trying to do that subtly... so that eventually I could reveal that. But
sorry, it's still too obvious. I know you too well.
Yeah.
But and then the idea, this is possibly the one amnesia story I've ever heard of in which people don't go about, at least not in detail, finding out their previous identities and who they were and their personal histories and stuff. Because it's really about who you are on a more core level, your emotions and your self-perception of, you know, what kind of person am I, as opposed to, like, what events have I experienced.
Okay, I mean, potentially Big O, but I haven't seen that fully.
Just, no,
I've heard
only
like, some
seen,
reviews.
like, half an episode.
And Dark City, definitely. But that's in a much...
I have not seen Dark City.
Yeah.
So, you know, here you are. It's you know, welcome to the planet, essentially, or whatever. Take them to town anyway. Welcome to existence. I was going there, actually. I like that song.
That is a good song.
Everyone's here, yeah. It's they're doing this to help you reflect on, like, actual life. Here you are in the real world, in this world that existed before you got here, and you gotta figure out how to navigate it and stuff. Giving characters who are full grown and have no memories lets them jump into that immediately, and you see the mystery of it more directly than you would see in the regular process of growing up from the age of 0, and, you know, by the time you're 5, you've seen all the basics. This is you know, more reflective that way because of the setting. It's just brilliantly done. Raka kind of explores what she can of her past, again without the details, but she becomes aware that
She becomes aware that she has the ability to remove the effects of gravity by touching them with her fingers. And that she's starting to get feelings for Izuku.
That'd be interesting.
Oh, no, but that's Uraraka. I'm sorry.
Yes. She becomes aware she was in some sort of distress or something in her previous life, and someone was there for her who tried to help her and who loved her, and she speculates maybe it was a friend or a family member or something. She doesn't know who it was, but that person was the crow in her dream. And it's a popular fan theory that all the Haibane are actually dead. This is their afterlife. You move on to the next world here, and this is some sort of a very gentle purgatory in a way, in which you have a chance to attain some healing and some enlightenment through whatever else may have been plaguing your soul, and Day of Flight is reincarnation, or perhaps you just move up to heaven or something. I like the idea of reincarnating, though. You have a chance to, like, take a break and then try life over again with some new, like, deep insights or something.
So what happens if you turn into a Haibane, and then someone revives you with the Dragon Balls? Do you, like, disappear in a different way than Day of Flight? I'm not trying to be funny here. I am genuinely curious about this.
Yeah.
Like, do you remember your time as Haibane?
You might. Gee, that would be really confusing.
Or, like, what if your soul was sucked out of purgatory and bound to a physical form, like what happened to Al in Full Metal Alchemist?
Oh, wow.
Like, would the seal have to be different from a human soul because it's turned into a Haibane?
I mean, I think they're still human souls. They just have different bodies.
Asking the real questions.
Yeah, that'd be... You should be a journalist and just ask the most random questions of everybody.
Okay, let's say that the matrix of leadership was taken by a Haibane. Could they defeat Unicron and or the Shredder?
Wow.
500 words or less, please. Okay. In all seriousness, the questions I asked about bringing someone back from the dead, those were serious. Everything else was good.
Okay, I mean, yeah. In this universe, there's no established mechanism for bringing people back from the dead. But
barring reincarnation.
Barring reincarnation.
If that is what happens.
If that is what happens, yeah. They go on to some other world, so reincarnation seems to be one way that could happen. But I don't know. We don't know who set up this system to begin with. There's no direct hint of a god or a spirit who ordained it to be so. So there's a lot of mysteries that remain mysteries. Assuming someone did set it up, you wonder if they might get annoyed at someone breaking the cycle, like stop messing with my purification plans. Thank you. Trying to help these poor people. What are you doing? What was the name of the dragon?
Shenron.
What are you doing, Shenron?
Or Purunga.
I had plans.
Or the Super Dragon. I don't remember what the Super Dragon Ball dragon's name was, but...
Yeah.
And if so, would King Zeno, the ruler of all 13 universes in the Dragon Ball multiverse, be able to override that guy? Or was it King Zeno?
There's one... So they have a library, but the library contains, like, practical knowledge on how to, like, grow crops and stuff, and it contains outright fiction, but it doesn't contain the history of this world or what's outside the walls or anything like that. And there are those groups, that group of people who comes from outside wearing the masks, called the Toga. But they sometimes bring books, but never revealing knowledge of the outside.
So no one has independently of this library decided to write their own histories?
Well, you could write... that's actually interesting. You could, in theory, write a history of what you've experienced of this town, but there doesn't seem to have been any continuous record going back to, like, the founding of the town or anything.
Okay, because, I mean, again, not being funny here, I'm remembering an episode of Doctor Who called Castrovalva, where the Master set up a trap for the Doctor, and that was actually a clue that everything was wrong. There were history books. They were centuries old, but they described history up to the present day, and no further.
As opposed to a history book that describes the future?
No, they did describe the future up until the day that the Doctor came.
Oh.
So, like, so every history textbook, even if they were, like, 500 years old...
Oh, everyone had magically updated itself.
No. They didn't magically update.
What are you talking about? They described it up to the present day.
They
were 500 years old, but they were described up to the present day. How did they get the extra info?
As in, imagine if someone took a modern history textbook that goes up to the present day, threw it back in time.
Oh, the setting is 500 years ago.
What?
Okay, when is the Doctor in this story?
The Doctor is now.
So there's history books leading up to the present time.
Right.
How is that a clue that something is amiss?
Because the history books, even though they lead up to the present day, are hundreds of years old. And they have been there for hundreds of years, and they have always been there for hundreds of years. That's a clue that the entire place is manufactured, and it's not real.
Okay, that's the mismatch. Because I was suddenly thinking that the history books were written in the future and then brought back to the present day, but
no,
only happened
they
to
were written back then, but they described a series of events that leads up to the day that the Doctor arrived, and then they stopped.
Even though they should have stopped hundreds of years ago when they were written.
Yes.
So it's as if they magically updated themselves.
No,
even though they didn't actually magically update themselves. See what I'm saying?
No,
like,
they didn't update themselves.
If.
They just had that because Castrovalva was actually only a few days old, even though from the perspective of the people inside of it, it's hundreds of years old.
So it was manufactured to be hundreds of years old.
Yes, because the whole thing was a trap by the Master to bring the Doctor here to kill him. And he did that by convincing the Doctor that this place called Castrovalva was a place where you could come for perfect peace and serenity.
Oh. So anyway.
Yeah, okay, I didn't explain that well at all, but okay.
I'm guessing I need to see the episode.
Yeah, maybe. Anyways, but seriously, that doesn't answer my question of, like, are there no records in the town of, okay, we consumed this much grain, the winter looks like it'll be hard?
Yeah, no, there's probably some of that, but there's no indication that goes back further than 100 years or so. I don't remember them giving a number, just like... They looked through the histories and they didn't go back as far as, and then something historically different happened in this town. It was just like we built a few buildings and there was no about how it actually began, who built the wall, or any of that. So I don't know what happened to all those books if they were ever written in the first place.
Huh.
Yeah, mysterious. And you think the show is going to maybe get into those mysteries, but no, it's about a personal journey. They're just setting up the personal stuff. Which is fine. That's the purpose of the show. And to the extent that some of that is mysterious, it's meant to be symbolic of the bigger questions of actual life that go unanswered. Like, where the whole universe came from and where do, human emotions and souls and stuff come from and what's our purpose and things like that. So, Raka...
why are we born? Why do we die? And why do we spend so much of the intervening time wearing digital watches?
Well, in this world, they don't have digital watches. So, skip the third question.
So there's no point in between the two stakes.
There's no point. Well, they have a clock tower, just not digital. Anyway, Raka has some renewed sense of self-worth by knowing that someone in her previous life cared for her this much. To have even reached out into that borderland of her, dying and moving up into this strange town. In the meantime, I should also mention when Ku disappears, everyone goes through grief, particularly Raka, who just got here and feels like somebody's already died on her. They haven't really died, but they moved on, and it's, you know, we kind of have to deal with that. And Raka eventually starts finding her place in the world, finds a job she enjoys, and becomes more attuned to Reki's silent struggles. And where this eventually goes is that Reki has a serious problem with self-hatred. And it's, in the climax particularly, very strongly implied that in her previous life, Reki had struggled with self-hatred and then committed suicide.
Wait, Reki and Raka, those are two different characters?
Two different characters.
Okay. They sound similar. I'm not making a joke. I'm just genuinely joking.
Reki has been there for a while, and Raka's the newbie.
Well, she deals with... Okay, no, never mind. I made tons of jokes already.
Okay.
I was going to make a Wreck-It Ralph joke. No.
Sorry, you tried, but... So, Reki has been struggling with this quietly, and she feels like she needs to do a lot of good deeds to, like, make up for her sinfulness that she perceives in herself. And this is why, in fact, she dubbed herself to be sort of Raka's mentor. She thought, all right, this will be, like, my biggest good deed project yet. This will be the one that earns me my day of flight. What she's failed to realize is that her actual problem isn't any lack of good deeds. It's the self-hatred itself. It's her greatest sin is overestimating her own sinfulness. That is what holds her back in a spiritual sense. The climax involves this amazing thing of Raka somehow, like, magically entering into the memory of Reki's dream, where we see, like, Reki is named Reki because it's from the word Gareki, which means, like, pebbles, like little stones. And she had previously narrated that, her dream was she was walking along a path with stones. And she was, but also there was a train there, and she was apparently throwing herself in front of the train, which was, like, one of her big secrets.
She was Mr. Incredible!
No. So, Raka thankfully manages to convince Reki that she is loved and deserves love. And of course, this all comes up much more eloquently in the actual show than me just summarizing it. Reki, finally managing to see that, is able to put aside her self-hate. She embarks on her day of flight after saying goodbye to Raka. And everyone's happy afterwards, actually, that Reki finally, like, found her way in the world, found the way to self-love and contentment and stuff, and they're glad for her new life, wherever it is. And Raka stays behind, but she's confident that her own day of flight will come eventually. So, the major theme of this whole work is the importance of putting aside self-hate and embracing self-love. And no, that doesn't mean narcissism. That means healthy self-love, seeing your own value as a person, seeing your goodness, and even if you make mistakes, that's okay. You can still be, worthy of community and love and all these other things. And connected with that is a general sense of finding who you are, and finding your place in the world.
So it's a story of growing up, kind of.
Yeah, in a way it is. But without the actual process of getting taller and all that. It's the spiritual sides of things, which can happen at any age, actually. You can easily grow up and then kind of lose your way in life and then find your way again at any age. So it's this tale of growing spiritually mature, you might call it. Oh. And that speaks to me quite a lot, especially that self-hatred angle, which I have struggled with for a very long time. It's better now than it was even just a year or two ago. But, damn, yeah, self-hatred is toxic. If any one of you in the audience has some inkling that, like, in order to be more accomplished and to get things done, I need to use self-hatred to motivate myself, that's not a good strategy. You might very well accomplish some external things, but you're going to be tearing yourself apart on the inside, and you deserve better than that. It's all fine to be focused on a goal if it's a worthy goal, but don't hate yourself for not being perfect or not getting things done quite as fast as you thought you should or any of that. That's a very important message, and that's why love this anime so much. It expresses that idea so well.
See, I think this kind of speaks about both of us in a sense. Our favorite show is about growing up, in a sense, but in a different way. Like yours is Haibane Renmei, which is about the emotional process of growing up and growing into a successful person, unburdened by faults and unbound by. No, wait, that's the thing to unlock your aura in Ruby. I was trying to go for profound there, but then I realized I was quoting something else. I'm sorry. No, I really was.
I understand.
My favorite show is Babylon 5. Now, you might not have heard of it. I may or may not have mentioned it before.
Yeah.
But that has a different connotation of growing up, that you are able to stand on your own, and that you don't need help from other... Oh, wait, no, that doesn't... No.
Well, I haven't seen Babylon 5,
Yes.
so it's hard for me to comment, but I'm guessing there's a more external actions to it than the Haibane Renmei spiritual side.
Being able to stand on your own without being told what to do.
Now, that is also an important lesson. It is.
It has ultimately the Intro to Crusade shows the 4 questions that you need to ask in order to be a real person. Who are you? What do you want? Where are you going? Who are your friends? And ultimately, it's about learning to ask those questions of yourself and not just simply following along with whatever someone blindly tells you.
I agree that you have to be independent and resist corrupt authorities in particular.
Well, it's not just corrupt authorities. It's you need to learn to think and see your own way. Not necessarily, I must reject all outside aid. Because one of the other big... Okay, Haibane Renmei, and I mean no offense when I say this, is 13 episodes long. They could get away with one moral of growing up and maturing and stuff. Babylon 5 was 5 seasons, a spin-off show, and multiple movies. They had a few more morals thrown around than just one.
Yeah.
That's not a slight against Haibane Renmei. I'm just saying that there was more scope to deal with different topics and stuff. Ultimately, Babylon 5 spoke to me because it was about... Ultimately, Babylon 5 to me was about growing up in a sense of learning to question your elders, not necessarily discarding their authority, but at the same time learning how to make your own path. Haibane Renmei, by comparison, was about learning to be yourself. They're both about learning to be yourself
through slightly different angles. And Haibane Renmei happens to feature a mysterious authority who's kind of just right about everything, or at least if he doesn't have all the answers, the stuff he does give you is helpful. Which is, doesn't give us the opportunity to say to someone higher up, no, I'm sorry, but you have got that thing completely wrong, and I'm going to be more independent and show you that you're wrong.
Which, yeah, eventually even B5 reveals that even the most well-intentioned people can be very flawed. There are good people working for the bad guys. There are bad people working for the good guys. I personally think that it's just an interesting way to look at how each series kind of reflects what we believe.
Yeah, I wish if I'd seen Babylon 5, I could
give you.
I could give you more information as to how I interpret the morals and how well it sits with me. It'd be interesting to see if there's something I disagree with, or if it's y'all just on the same... Huh?
I just realized... I'm sorry. I realized I kind of took this over by starting to talk about B5.
I didn't mean to. I just wanted to show a contrast of like 2 different shows that have similar themes of growing up and how they inform us about our characters.
Yeah. I'm not offended. I just wish I'd seen B5 and then I could comment more about it.
Yes, I'll get you that as soon as I get the DVDs back.
All right. Well, in the meantime...
he recommends you see High Bonet Renmei.
I do. And I hope it inspires you as much as it did me. So that.
I have nothing else to say.
All right.
I'm sorry that I was a bit of a jackass the whole time.
It's okay.
Anyways, I'm Sith King.
I'm Sonic Sons.
Signing off.